I asked, thank you. I asked the question of Spirit before I came today, and I had two questions. What was my purpose for speaking at this conference? And my head filled up with all the reasons of why my work could perhaps be of use to you. But the only answer I got was to speak. I then asked, how do I share my journey and experience with you in the best way? And the answer was to just speak my truth. So I'm going to share with you my journey and experiences and how I've come to be working in the way that I do with people and their homes, and helping them to understand how what is contained within their inner temple is outpictured in the places that they call home. And it comes from both the conscious and the unconscious aspects of the self, that how we are does get outpictured in our homes. And by being invited through someone's front door, through that entry portal into their inner world, their deepest secrets can get revealed. And it's one of the ways that I can help facilitate people to see what patterns are actually holding them back from really optimizing their soul journey here, this lifetime. And often it's the clearing of patterns of many lifetimes that we've come here to do this time. And it's very difficult to see our own stuff. Sometimes it needs someone else who can come in and gently show you to seeing what's perhaps hidden from self, and that you can release the pattern and move on to the total magnificence of being able to live totally in your heart. So I ask you to just close your eyes and tune in to how you're feeling in yourselves at this moment. How do you feel as your body rests on the chair with your feet on the floor? How does this space feel? And what is happening in your energy fields as they are outside of your body? Do they feel expanded? Do they feel contracted? Do you feel tired? Do you feel energized? How much of you is fully present here? And then just take another easy breath in and just be aware of your body on the chair and come back into the room. And just gently open your eyes. So all day, every day, our energy fields expand and contract. And this can be to do with what we're thinking about, how we're feeling, what we're watching, if we're watching TV, what we're reading, what we've eaten, the choices of the people that we've spent time with, and more importantly, the energy of the places that we spend time in. And when our energy fields are in expansion, there is a really good feeling about us, and our immune system's functioning well, our brain is being able to kick out the good endorphins that keep us positive and energized. And when our energy fields are in contraction, we can get sick. And for many of us, it's understanding the choices and being conscious of what we do think about, our mental chatter, what we're choosing to watch, what we're choosing to read, the foods, the quality of the foods that we're choosing to put into our bodies. We all know that we can be with people that we can walk away from and feel absolutely drained. And we know the people that really energize us. So it's mastery of our choices, because these are all things that we have choices to a degree about, or we can learn good techniques which actually can deal with any energy dips that we notice during our day. I mean, just for instance, something as simple as having a little box of Tic Tacs by the desk, and you've had perhaps a difficult phone call or a difficult thought process, just by rattling the little packet of Tic Tacs, or one of those eggs, you know, that musicians use, little shakers, completely change the way your energy is. So it's little techniques like that. I always used to find that if I went to B&Q, for instance, I'd get into the middle of B&Q and I'd think, oh, just get me out of here, because there would seem to be like a magical vortex that happened in the middle of B&Q in particular, that my energy would drop. So just it's those sort of energy management things that we can do on a day-to-day basis that help us stay good and positive. And knowing too, things like being able to have a saltwater bath, which will immediately cleanse the body. If you swim in the sea, the salt water goes through the energy fields, and it takes away, it's got a negative ionizing effect. It takes away a lot of the gunk that sticks to our bodies. So we feel brighter when we've been swimming in the sea. And we can create that for ourselves. Again, it's a good energy management technique that if you notice your energy's dropped, you can, you know, get home and have a saltwater bath, and put a few little drops of essential oil in, which will again zap the vibration and bring you back up again. So there are things that you have direct choice about and can manage these energies. But the spaces that we choose to spend time in, our homes in particular, have a very profound effect on these energy fields. We know when we've been into a space, we've gone to visit people, for instance, and we've walked into a space that we really don't particularly want to hang about in, or it just doesn't encourage you to want to sit. It doesn't make you want to relax. So in that situation, the energy fields contract. They contract because there is something that we're picking up that we're not at ease about. And so if an energy field sits normally 6 to 8 inches away from the body, it will contract right in and create a safe place for you, but it means that you don't have an expansion in your world. So choosing and recognizing these things means that we can also have a look at our own homes and our own spaces and how they hold the story of our inner world outpictured. Excuse me, I just have some water. When I started on this work, I was a wedding dress designer. I've been designing wedding dresses for 18 years. I was always interested about the relationship. How did people meet this special person that they were going to journey with? And they'd come back with the most amazing stories of how they happened to be in a particular place at a particular time, talking to somebody, and this special person arrived. And that started me off in this inquiry about what we attract. What is it that draws us to that experience and the person that comes into our lives? And the wedding dresses sort of morphed. I started doing numerology and looking at the birth dates of the bride and the groom. What were their gifts? What was the exchange in the relationship? And then I moved into using crystals to work through the heart chakra on the bride, creating a story for her and understanding the deeper meaning of the relationship. And the last shop that I moved into was obviously, my time of making the dresses was up, but I was needing a direction. And so the universe decided that I was going to have this particular shop, which was on 3 floors. And there was the basement, which I kept my fabrics in, the first floor, which I had as my retail showroom, and the top floor was my workroom. We hadn't long moved into the shop, and there was a general discomfort amongst the staff about going down into the basement. It was cold in the basement, but it was beyond cold. It was chill. It was a real chill to the air, which I've since come to understand is a pretty standard sort of feeling if there's a spirit energy in the space. But we got to the point where things would move along the rail, or the doorbell would go, and you'd get downstairs and there'd be nothing, and you'd open the door to the street and look up and down, and there'd be nobody apparently that was going to come into your shop for a wedding dress. And then the staff wouldn't stay on the premises unless I was there. And by this time I'd realised that I was having to put myself in a bubble to go down and get my fabrics. And that really was my first experience of recognising that there was spirit energy that hung about in spaces. This was an 1870s house, what was a house initially, in Romsey. And it was Spirit's way of telling me that I was morphing here. I was going to have to move from my one understanding of researching the human dream. I think somebody described it at one point, that's what I'd been doing with the wedding dresses. I was actually seeing one aspect of relating and how we project out into the world. And I eventually found somebody who could come and help me in my understanding of the energy in this space. And I worked with her, and I'd been down into the basement, and I'd really got the sense that this was a male energy in the basement in my shop, and there was something about his chest that really I felt when I went down there. And she came and helped and worked with me and said that he'd come back to look for his wife. He'd not been happy to go. He'd died of emphysema, so I thought, aha, and it's a him. I've got this bit right. There's something that I'm being told here. And this was probably 12 years ago now, which it's just an interesting introduction. It was like a way of being shown clearly the transition that I needed to make. And I sensed him as she talked him up the stairs. I sensed him at the top of the stairs down to the basement, and we brought him into a circle of light, and she talked him up through a ladder, and I could see him at the top of the ladder, and then all of a sudden he just popped and went. And the whole energy of the shop changed. The basement was always cold, because it was cold, but it wasn't chill cold. And very shortly after that, I ceased making wedding dresses, and I let the shop go and started working much more with the energy therapies that I'd been training in. I'd been working with Reiki and Sakem and pranic healing. And people used to come for the wedding dress fittings, and I didn't realise at the time, but I was working right in the energy fields of the body. When I was fitting the toile, I was really extremely privileged to be able to, for them not to feel uncomfortable, for me to actually be pinning the dresses on the body. And they'd say, I don't know why, but I feel so much better. I can't wait to come back for my next fitting. And I really hadn't understood, the whole thing. It was a curiosity, a draw for me with energy therapies and looking at meditation and an inner process. I was searching for myself. I could put the focus out on my family and say, well, my daughter's got asthma, so I'm looking for something that will help her with her asthma. But actually, I was learning tools for me in understanding energy, understanding how energy worked, how attraction worked. So for a little while, after I stopped making wedding dresses, I worked as an energy therapist. And I started to recognize that people would come for therapy and they'd hold the charge of the therapy and then they'd go home. And so the question started to come, what was it that when they went home they seemed to slip back? There was something that was, it was like they'd hold it a little bit. And I seemed to get quite a few people that had ME. And they'd come and there would be a real shift in their energy field in my working with them. Something, you know, when they came back the next week, we were actually covering ground again to get to where we were. And I'd been interested in interior design and colour and houses for quite some time. So I started to join the dot that there was a matrix of them that was outpictured in their homes that was holding the pattern of whatever it was that they were presenting. And therefore, by doing working and doing therapy with them, there was this shift. But when they went back, it was like they'd slid back into the glue or the frame, the matrix of their thinking and their behavior and their emotional patterning that was part of the cause of the physical problem that they were presenting with. So that little lead on led me to do some professional training in interior design work, but I also specialised in creating sanctuary spaces for people and working in a more energetic way. Did some training with Feng Shui and Vastu, and started to deepen the dowsing skills that I'd been developing for the last 10 or 12 years in helping to identify and work with people in a much deeper way in connection with their homes. So that's really where I'd got to, and how interior alchemy was born, in the fact that the alchemy of what's going on in here gets outpictured in our homes, and transformation in our homes changes what's in here. So it works both ways. It's a really sweet weave of how do we get to this place of being much more open to work with our own energy and really optimize our own soul journey this lifetime. How do we clear up any of the debris that we're still carrying? How do we shine and polish the diamond of our heart? How do we polish the chitta, the mirror that the Eastern philosophies talk about? And they talk of the clouds on the chitta, things that dull our radiance, that stop us from really being able to be who we've truly come here to be. So by working with clients in their homes, I'm able to help them with in both ways, by helping them to see inner stuff that has been outpictured in their spaces that they don't have knowledge of at a conscious level. It's hidden. We can't see our own stuff. It's very much more difficult for us to do that. So what I'm going to invite you to do is to take a little journey back to your homes, to come from this space to there, because we're all on a journey this weekend. We're all on a journey. We're in it, for most of us. We're on a piece of land that's got a completely different rhythm, a completely different energy to where we live, and we've got the opportunity of the share and the exchange of the knowledge and the love and the vibration as we mix as a group, and we will all go back to our homes different people from the people that left this morning. Every time we come out, we change. When I first worked just in a small shop, just after I trained doing the design work, dress design work, I worked partly as a buyer and partly as a designer for a small company. And my boss used to go off on holiday, and it used to drive us crazy because when she got back, she'd shifted, and so she'd walk into the shop and she'd want to make radical changes everywhere. So what I'd like you to do is to go back to your own homes at this time and just see what you can see with different eyes. When you're in something, you don't have clear vision. When you're outside of it, you've got the opportunity to go back and change, to change that area of the house that might be holding clutter, which is stagnant energy. You might have boxes of stuff that are unsorted, because unsorted stuff is part of our journey that we've really not wanted to deal with, or we've just, hived off onto a shelf or in a cupboard somewhere. Take a look at your front door of your house. The front of our house is our face to the world. The front door is the portal. That's where the chi comes through into your house, in whichever house you want to look at it in, whether it's this one or the physical house that the bricks and mortar house that you're living in. Does the bell work? Is there a light? Is it freshly painted? Can somebody find it? Do you want to be found? It is the next face of you to the world. So let's just make this trip and see how your space feels, what insights your house can give you at a distance. So you're all held in safe space in this little journey. And so I just invite you to just mentally take yourself back to your home. See where you land, and just see if there's anything that really pops up, that comes to mind. So on your next gentle breath in, just bring your awareness back into the room. And back fully present with us. Be aware of your weight of your body on the chair, your feet on the floor, and your sense of yourself back here in your body, fully present with us. Anybody experience anything surprising, interesting? Not what you'd expected? Was everybody able to actually get into their homes? Wonderful. We've done this journey with some people that actually haven't actually been able to get into or through their front doors. So you're all pretty aligned with your spaces. Does anybody not feel at home in their home? Yeah. Okay. Any sense of why that is for you? Okay, she said she has violent neighbours. Yeah. And that's disturbing. Yeah.
I feel I've been camping for far too long.
Yes.
And well, I have boxes of stuff which I will eventually get around to sorting out, but never do. Occasionally visit to a dump or visit to a charity shop, and gradually it's going, but there's a lot of clutter.
Yeah.
Because it's all going to be moved to the one home which I really want to be in, but I just haven't got around to doing it. So it's like camping.
Yeah. So the gentleman says he's been camping for far too long and is waiting for the right house or home to find home.
It's home.
Yeah.
It's got to be the right house.
Yeah. I
I
think.
don't know where that's going to be, but that's just the sort of thing for me at the moment. I just don't know where I want to be.
Yeah. And I think for some of us there is this searching for home on whatever level it is. There is that searching for that place of coming homeness within our souls.
Yeah. But it's not as if I'm actually even trying hard to find it. I'm just allowing this process to go on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's with the consultations that the consultation work that I do with clients, and which some of those are consultations I do on my own. Some of them are combination consultations that I do with Christian Kiriakou, who was talking this morning, and we work very well together when we're working with clients because there's a balance of male-female energies, and we also pick up in different ways what we're reading in a house and what we're reading in the dynamic and the expression of the client. So in the listening, we're receiving different information. And over the past 2 or 3 years, I think I've done about 130 consultations for people in different parts of the world and different parts of this country. And what I've found is that there's always a resonance in the house to our own story. And also I've found increasingly that the clients that are drawn to us have also got a resonance with my story or Christian's story. So it's there's a sort of a circle that goes on here in the shift and learning and understanding. And there's sort of a cycle that goes. We will get a series of clients, as we did last year, that had had childhood abusive situations, and one client in particular had found herself buying a property that had been a drug den and a brothel at one point, and it had been bought by a slum landlord who had done it up. This was just on the outskirts of New York, and who'd done this property up and then sold it. And of course, she'd walked in, and it had felt like home because there was a frequency in her field that carried that story of abuse. And so it felt familiar. It felt like home. So she was able to move in, but once she'd moved in, there was one particular room that even the cat wouldn't go into. She couldn't stay in there. It just remained empty. And when we got there and we actually doused the space and tuned into the story that came back was of a very serious abuse in that particular space. And that moving in there had brought the memory, which this client had forgotten completely of her childhood journey, and she was able to get help for that, but also through the harmonizing and clearing of the energy in this space and the clearing of this memory held in the space, that everything shifted, everything changed. And she was able to start going back out in the world and working again and recognize why she'd been drawn to the space. Because there is, I mean, what is it? What is it that makes us, when we go to buy a house, we might go and look at a dozen different houses. They might have the same accommodation. They might be in the same sort of area. But what is it that makes one feel like it could be home? That there is, our soul can rest. I mean, a lot of times we know before we've even walked through the door that this is it. I'm going to have this house. What is it? What is it that's attracted us? What is it that's made it feel so? Now, for that particular client, there was a residence in the field. Other people would have walked into that particular flat for sale and have gone, whoa, no way, you know, I wouldn't want this one. But she did. And yet it was a very destructive space. But it served her in bringing her to the place of healing and resolution on the wounding that she was carrying. So when we get a phone call from somebody who says, since I moved into this particular house, my life's gone pear-shaped. You know, my health isn't good, or my relationships, my you know, very rock-steady relationship has fallen apart, or I had a very successful business and it's just disappearing in front of my eyes, all since I've moved into this house. There is usually something that the soul has drawn us to. The house is radiated, and we've matched it. We've taken that journey, and the house will work with us. And once we've got it, we can move forward. We can clear it. We can move forward. And it's a fascinating view. It's like turning things around. And we've done a lot of. One of the places that we went to, again in America, was a long-held story on the land. We got called to work with a client who was having a lot of battles in her family. She and her sister were at loggerheads. Her brother had died of schizophrenia. And they were living in the suburbs of New Jersey. So we arrive, and she'd warned us that her sister had some training in sort of Hawaiian voodoo, magic-y sort of stuff. But you know, they were all living in the house together. And when we arrived, the sister was stood at the end of the driveway, and she was completely Native American Indian energy. And the client that we'd been called to work with was white American. And they were playing out the story of the land. The house was built on a Lenape Indian trail. The deer trail was still through the garden. It was an ancient site of a massacre. And they'd moved from Long Island to this place. Something had pulled them to this place. And half the family were resonating and carrying the frequency of native people. And the other half were very much, the white settler. And the battle was playing out as a dynamic still. It was still running. And we started the work, and I could hear drumming. I'd not experienced that before, but I could hear drumming, like Native American drumming. And I thought they're in celebration that we're resolving the stuff that's presenting in this house. But fairly swiftly, we realized that it was war drums. And there was a lot of the whole old story and pattern that was actually being brought to life for resolution as we worked. And by the time we'd finished and had got to the basement of the property, things had really begun to get really calm and clear in the space. And we went into the garage, and there was and like all American places, it was a big garage with lots of stuff. And the sister, who was had the North American Indian energy, she said, I can see myself crouched down over there by the door. And all of a sudden, the electric door opened halfway up. Nobody was anywhere near it. And her energy, she said, I've gone. And with that, the door closed again, and the father went over, and he was desperately trying to make, something work that would explain this. But there was an absolute clearing of that energy through the house. And also, the really nice piece of resolution was the son who had schizophrenia had been in the house that dowsed out to be the core seed place of the pain that was stored in the house. And what they didn't realise when he used to come home at weekends from his residential place that he was in was that he would hear voices and see visions and be talking, and they didn't realise that actually what he was doing was seeing through the veil of a split third eye, that he was picking up all of the history that was on the site. So in their understanding through what we'd been able to share with them, there was great healing and resolution for them in understanding some of the things that he had said and some of the things that he picked up in this room that was at the epicenter of the disturbed energy. I don't think that came to the point of a totally happy ever after story, but the sisters were actually able to embrace by the time we left, and there was a great sense of peace and ease in the household. And the resolution piece from the outside was that they created a sacred mandala in the garden. We dowsed for a place in the garden that was appropriate, that would honour what had happened on the land, and create ease for onward journey for them. So I'm saying that the stories and why we end up sometimes in the places that we end up are just quite magical, and they offer huge resolution for our ongoing journey. So to finish, I thought we could start with just a little meditation, and just to bring you back to completion. Thank you. So if you let's just take a few easy breaths in and out. And just be very aware of the weight of your body on the chair and your feet on the floor. And just be aware of the pressure of the clothes against your face. Pressure of your clothes against your skin. Be aware of where the clothes touch, where they're loose, where they're tight. And just be aware of the play of the air on your face and on your hands. Your sense of smell and of taste. And then just be aware of all the sounds in the room. And just gently expand your hearing out beyond the room and into the vicinity of the village. And then just bring your attention back to the air as it's passing in and out of your nose and in and out of your body. And then just take your attention to your heart. And just recall a really happy event. A person in a place. And with every breath you take, allow your heart energy to deepen. As you remember that happy event. And then just breathe that really beautiful golden light out through your body, so that your body, with every breath, fills up with the beautiful golden light from your heart. Feel all the cells responding. And then just breathe that energy out to everyone in the room here. And And then with the next breath, just breathe that energy out into the community. And breathe it and send it to anyone that's within your circle that you know can do with that extra blessing just now. And then with the next breath in, just bring your attention back into your own body. And be aware of the weight of your body on the chair and the feet on the floor. Just gently wriggle your fingers and your toes. And when you're ready, just open your eyes with a big, big smile. So thank you. I feel I weaved and waffled slightly, but I hope you'll bear with me through that. And yeah, blessings, namaste. What we're watching, if we're watching TV, what we're reading, what we've eaten, the choices of the people that we've spent time with, and more importantly, the energy of the places that we spend time in. And when our energy fields are in expansion, there is a really good feeling about us, and our immune system's functioning well, our brain is being able to kick out the good endorphins that keep us positive and energized. And when our energy fields are in contraction, we can get sick. And for many of us, it's understanding the choices and being conscious of what we do think about, our mental chatter, what we're choosing to watch, what we're choosing to read, the foods, the quality of the foods that we're choosing to put into our bodies. We all know that we can be with people that we can walk away from and feel absolutely drained. And we know the people that really energize us. So it's mastery of our choices, because these are all things that we have choices to a degree about, or we can learn good techniques which actually can deal with any energy dips that we notice during our day. I mean, just for instance, something as simple as having a little box of Tic Tacs by the desk, and you've had perhaps a difficult phone call or a difficult thought process, just by rattling the little packet of Tic Tacs, or one of those eggs, you know, that musicians use, little shakers, completely change the way your energy is. So it's little techniques like that. I always used to find that if I went to B&Q, for instance, I'd get into the middle of B&Q and I'd think, oh, just get me out of here, because there would seem to be like a magical vortex that happened in the middle of B&Q in particular, that my energy would drop. So just it's those sort of energy management things that we can do on a day-to-day basis that help us stay good and positive. I asked, thank you. I asked the question of Spirit before I came today, and I had two questions. What was my purpose for speaking at this conference? And my head filled up with all the reasons of why my work could perhaps be of use to you. But the only answer I got was to speak. I then asked, how do I share my journey and experience with you in the best way? And the answer was to just speak my truth. So I'm going to share with you my journey and experiences and how I've come to be working in the way that I do with people and their homes, and helping them to understand how what is contained within their inner temple is outpictured in the places that they call home. And it comes from both the conscious and the unconscious aspects of the self, that how we are does get outpictured in our homes. And by being invited through someone's front door, through that entry portal into their inner world, their deepest secrets can get revealed. And it's one of the ways that I can help facilitate people to see what patterns are actually holding them back from really optimizing their soul journey here, this lifetime. And often it's the clearing of patterns of many lifetimes that we've come here to do this time. And it's very difficult to see our own stuff. Sometimes it needs someone else who can come in and gently show you to seeing what's perhaps hidden from self, and that you can release the pattern and move on to the total magnificence of being able to live totally in your heart. So I ask you to just close your eyes and tune in to how you're feeling in yourselves at this moment. How do you feel as your body rests on the chair with your feet on the floor? How does this space feel? And what is happening in your energy fields as they are outside of your body? Do they feel expanded? Do they feel contracted? Do you feel tired? Do you feel energized? How much of you is fully present here? And then just take another easy breath in and just be aware of your body on the chair and come back into the room. And just gently open your eyes. So all day, every day, our energy fields expand and contract. And this can be to do with what we're thinking about, how we're feeling,